Hey guys, so this video is going to be recorded in two parts because I have a feeling I'm going to utterly destroy the ship's mesh in the second part, and I just want to get this done first, just in case. So in the last video I was dealing with a couple of issues. Two of the largest ones were the fact that I was getting Z fighting on the sails and I couldn't get the shadows to work correctly. And the other issue was the fact that when I had cloth-based sails, they were jittery when I was moving the ship. Well, I was actually able to figure out the solutions for both of them. The first one was actually dealing with the shader itself. Now the mesh is still one-sided for the sails. Like you can see, you can't see the wireframe on one side and you can see it on the other, so it's still one-sided, but I'm using two passes here. First one is to draw one side and the second one to draw the other side. I fixed the problem with the shadow bleeding through by actually modifying the shader like so. Basically I added this part right here, the shadow collector pass. The key is to actually flip the Z test. And the problem was solved. Now it draws correctly. And I'll show you what happens with the second issue in the second part of the video. But for the time being, I want to go over some of the things I was trying to do earlier. So yesterday I actually tried to animate the sails of the ship using the 3D Studio Max. So basically animate them using bones instead, and I did get it to work fairly well. Like I could actually turn things, and I'll just show you how it actually looks in here. So here I have the rear bone, which lets me rotate the sail around, and then there's the wind bone, which lets me deform the sail like it was affected by the wind. I also wrote a script to do this. Oops. So now the sail actually turns to be with the wind's vector. You can actually see it right here. And it is actually deformed by the wind's strength. So as the wind changes, the strength that is applied to the bone changes as well, so it deforms the sail differently. And it looks nice. I can sail around and it deforms, but it's not quite as responsive as if it would be if it was actually cloth based. Still, it gives quite pleasing results. The only thing I didn't like about this was the complexity of getting these sails to work. I had to essentially use a bunch of different bones in order for them to work correctly, like certain bones to raise them and lower them, other bones to actually deform them, and it seemed like a lot of work, and the kind of work that would be quite tedious. So I figured, hey, there's got to be a way to do this programmatically, and I kind of went back to the cloth-based approach. Which brings us to part 2. Today I actually got physics to behave somewhat correctly, and cloth seems to be working alright for the most part. Now I abandoned the smooth camera following the ship and just set the interpolation to none. This way the ship is moving at the same speed as the cloth, and the jitteriness of the cloth doesn't actually show up. Now this does mean that the ship is not as smooth as it can be, of course, but what are you gonna do, right? Anyway, this is how it looks now. So here's the wind vector, and it's actually hitting the sails. The sails kind of turn to stay with the wind, and they react as you would expect. Of course, if I happen to go against the wind, then the movement is going to be much slower as the result, and the sails will be looking as expected. End result, I think it looks pretty good overall. But there are some quirks with this, of course. So first of all, as you might notice, I actually have them disabled right off the bat. That is because if I happen to have them enabled, let me show you what happens. There's the cloth. If I enable the cloth, it's fine here, and it will start off. All is great. But if I happen to hit the apply button to save the prefab, oh, look at that. Nice. Yeah, that was nice. And it doesn't seem to matter what kind of cloth I have there or what the complexity of the model is. As long as I have cloth and as long as it's actually enabled, it crashes whenever I do any changes to the prefab. So good times. Well, moving on. Let's see what happens if the ship is active and then you happen to disable it, say it was destroyed, and then you re-enable it as if you were using a pool manager, for example. Oh, look at that. Nice. Now here's the kicker. Here's what happens when you actually disable the cloth. Right now it's disabled, and yet it is being animated, and not very well at that. If you then enable the component, it stays behind. Does this make any sense to you? Because it doesn't to me. Yeah. Which reminds me of another thing. The wind itself. There's a game object here called wind zone. So there is a wind zone in Unity which actually affects the way trees sway, the way grass sways. Also affects the new shuriken particle system if you wanted to. And you can create neat things like explosions that actually affect particles around them, for example. Or if you were making a helicopter, you can actually make the ground underneath the helicopter sway with the wind and affect the particles, smoke, and so on and so forth. It sounds great, right? Well, it's fine if you were to set all these values right off the bat and then just use them as is. But if you wanted to modify them from code, like I'm doing, for example, when I'm changing the wind's direction, well, wind's direction you can just change the transformer. But if you were changing the strength of the wind or anything like that, guess what? The class doesn't exist. Now, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's somewhere hidden, but as far as I know, and according to all the searches that I've done, this has been a problem since the class was introduced. It's just a private class, and the only way to access it is through hacks, using reflection, accessing private components within Unity. Come on, guys. What the hell? And this is exactly why I always advocate making tools for yourself and never for other people. Because honestly, to me, these particular features feel like they've been added as a cool thing back in the day, years ago, and then they were never used again, at least not in production. I mean, tell me I'm wrong. Tell me that it got broken recently and it used to be great. I don't know, but what I'm seeing right now does not impress. Anyway, the reason I'm actually bringing this up is because at the beginning of these videos I actually mentioned that I'll be honest about the issues that I encounter and actually talk about them, not just brush them aside or show you what I've done instead, because I figure other people will find these informative in the future as well. It's good to have problems as well as solutions, I think. Although, honestly, after spending a day with this, I figure in the future it's going to be all about workarounds rather than solutions. But who knows? My knowledge of Unity is definitely far from perfect. And also, to be honest, and to be completely fair with Unity, the only thing that makes me really appreciate it is working with older tools, like 3D Studio Max, for example. Oh man. Oh man, oh man. User friendliness was not in Autodesk's vocabulary, not at all. Anyway, It's like half this video is just me complaining. You notice that? It's like it's my birthday or something. Oh wait. Yeah, I'm gonna go now. Thanks for watching.